And we are live. Hello, everybody, on this Friday night. What is it, May 3rd? Welcome, everybody. I'll just give you all a few seconds to jump into the stream. Hope people are having a great Friday night. Now we're going to have a few different topics here on cheap travel knowledge here with your boy JP Knowledge. Talking about favorite programs. Favorite program. Which program is your favorite transfer partner? I think we all have some that we may use the most commonly, but then also it ends up being like the ones that we may have seen like the most value we can get from them. So, cool. Alrighty. Xavier, welcome. Cool. Hopefully you can hear me well. Got the mic finally working again. Last time it was an issue. I'm kind of a distance away from it, but I think it's better than the mic having the mic from the computer. So, but yeah, go over a few different things. I always try to write down a little bit of notes to make sure I got topics here. Sounds good and clear. Awesome. Great to hear. Yeah, so in this one, we're talking about different favorite transfer partners. The reason for this is because I guess I'm trying to think of ways that how our minds work, psychologically when it comes to points being as a transferable currency versus as when they're already with the transfer partners. If you have your points with the transfer partner, do you feel that you're going to use them easier or quicker? Maybe it doesn't make a difference to you. But I've noticed that like when I have my airline miles with a program, I'm like, cool, let's book something with these versus if you have your membership reward points, something like that. I have the feeling that a lot of people will like to like see that number grow when instead of transferring over to a program and then taking the value of it, because people are like, oh, well, I don't want to have a lower amount of membership reward points. I think this is one of the reasons why I talked about it. I can't remember which week that was, a few weeks ago. We're talking about buying points. And I think that people buy points because they don't want to see their accounts for their transferable currencies go lower. So what they do is they get nervous about having that points balance drop to a certain number. So they would rather buy the points instead of seeing the number drop, which I don't think makes a lot of sense if you end up doing the math. There was a gentleman, All the Hacks, who talked about buying points and having a cashback setup. I watched his video discussing that information. He's very smart. He knows a lot about when it comes to earning and redeeming points and miles. And he was wondering about if you had a whole entire cashback setup, could you do that to purchase points? And how he's explaining it, I think it ends up showing like if you are just redeeming at like close to 1.5 or below, then it probably can end up making sense to just getting a cashback setup, using the cash for whatever you want, or using it for different travel, or if need be, buying points in the situations when those times arise. But as a whole, if you are redeeming it for over that amount, then it's not going to make sense if you're redeeming it closer to 2 cents per point, because even if you're buying points, it doesn't take into consideration the possibility of a transfer bonus. Because if you are buying, say, for instance, something like Virgin Atlantic miles, I think you can buy them. I think the lowest maybe I've ever seen is like 1.3 or something like that. If you are using your points and you get a 30% transfer bonus and you value your point, let's say at 1 cent per point, something like Citi Thank You points, you essentially are buying it at like 0.77 cents per point. So it's significantly cheaper as compared to what you'd be buying it if you end up paying with cash. But the reason why I bring this up again is because I do believe that people, when you have your points in these different programs, you're going to feel more comfortable with using these points in these programs. Because when your points are with, now I'm not telling everyone to just speculatively transfer. That's not what I'm trying to get here. But when your points can end up being with these transferable currencies, I think people feel you should feel more confident with them there, but also you don't feel the urge as much to book trips. So I do think that if you end up having, say, for instance, I transferred over 100,000 points to Virgin Atlantic, and then whatever thing I tried to book was maybe like a phantom award space, I'd be like, oh, shoot, well, now I can't book that. Well, now what am I going to do? Well, I could start looking for other things that I may want to book with my membership reward points or something like that. But chances are what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be figuring out how can I spend those Virgin Atlantic miles. Because although I still have membership reward points, Chase Ultimate reward points, other points programs, the thing that I'm going to want to do is get rid of the points that are connected with the airline because I know that they're going to devalue. I mean, Virgin Atlantic already did like a devaluation last year, so I don't think they're going to do another one again this year. I mean, but who knows? Alaskan Airlines has had, I feel like they've done one every year for like the last 4 years, ever since like 2019. I could be wrong, but they've had decent changes to their program. But I do think that if people transfer their points over to programs, know for something that they want to book, there's a higher likelihood that they're going to make that booking. And this is where transfer bonuses can end up coming into play, because if you end up transferring your points over to these programs and there is a transfer bonus, chances are you are kind of like hedging yourself against a devaluation unless it's just insanely massive. But like if you were to, for instance, transfer over 50,000 points and there was like a, let's say a transfer bonus over to, or I guess say you do like 40,000 points, or transfer bonus over to like Turkish Airlines before they did their devaluation. It stinks what happened, but if you end up looking at where the transfer rate would have ended up being, you're kind of like getting the fares at the older price. This is kind of like some of the things that I've noticed with like Virgin Atlantic, where they had their devaluations last year, where it is annoying, but if you look at how much Virgin Atlantic has been increasing their 30% transfer bonuses, then I'm like, well, as compared to if you look like a few years ago, they weren't doing it as consistent. Now I think they were also doing more of like 20 and 25%. So now it ends up being like, well, if you can take advantage of this transfer bonus, you're kind of hedging yourself against a immediate devaluation. If you just transfer over to one of these programs when there's no transfer bonus, then what's going to end up happening is that, yes, if a devaluation happens, that really stinks. But if you do it during a transfer bonus, you for a lot of the cases, you're probably going to end up just catching the fare or the cost that it was before the devaluation if you factor in the transfer bonus. Hopefully that makes some sense. Hey, we got a few people in the house. Lynn Rideshare Hustle, what's going on? Welcome. Hey, what's going on? Flying Blue for you easily. Nice. Yes, Flying Blue is a great program. I'm liking them more and more that I look at them. I have a couple of different flights I have booked with them this year. With in business class, so I'm going to be doing both and just not even too long from now, because I'm going to be visiting different parts of Europe, but also seeing my brother, and then I'm flying home on Air France. Took advantage. They had a 25% transfer bonus last year that I took advantage of, or no, so it was that. I think that was actually the other booking that I made. This one was the 100% transfer bonus from Bilt Rewards that I took advantage of. So so I did that, and then I waited, and then I ended up finding this booking. So it was like half the cost when it comes to miles to be able to make the booking. But Flying Blue is great. I don't know if they have well, I guess I can look at it later on in the video, because I have a part in here that's going to be talking about different transfer bonuses and then different transfers that are going on, the history of them, and just following like different patterns is what I try to say. So I asked people, I put a post out there, had people ask some questions. I didn't get many, just got the one. Someone asking, worst hotel you've ever been to. So I've never really been to many bad hotels, if I'm going to be completely honest. I probably went to some when I was a kid, when we were just like taking buses to places and then staying in the hotels, like cheaper hotels, as we went to, I think I remember as a kid, we went to like West Virginia. I can't remember what hotels we stayed at when I went to those places as a kid. And then, I guess the only thing I can think of is like, there's been like some motels that I've been to. Like I remember when I traveled across the country from Massachusetts, where I'm originally from, to get over here. Those always feel kind of weird when people are just walking by and anyone could just bang on your door or try to get in who's not even a part of the hotel. So I've definitely done some of that. I think when I was on the high school wrestling team, we stayed at some places that had some different motels, but we were always like with people, and I never really thought too much about it, because I guess at the time, the hotels that I stayed at it's all I knew. So I didn't know what a nice hotel was. It wasn't until I started traveling and started kind of going and exploring a little bit where I started to realize, like, oh wow, there are different levels to hotels. Like if like when I was in Fiji, all the vehicles over there were like older vehicles. It's probably, I think, kind of similar if you go to like Cuba, I believe, where it's like because they couldn't get newer American vehicles because of all the politics. Same thing with Fiji, where it's like, oh, it cost a ton to import these vehicles. So what they end up doing is they end up getting a lot of older Toyotas from coming in from Japan. So then I think that's kind of what it is. But I imagine that there's probably people are like, oh, all these older cars are great because that's all they really see, versus thinking to themselves like, oh my goodness, I don't have a 2020 car. I don't have a 2020 vehicle. Everyone's got a 2020. You're out here in LA, everyone's got 2020, 2022. Who knows? Everyone's probably got already the 2025s that they're riding around with in all this this darn debt when it comes to people purchasing vehicles. So yeah, if I have to think, I will say, so what I will add on to that is if I was to look at like the cheapest hotel, I've stayed at the Excalibur in Vegas, and that's like, I mean, you could get some really cheap days there. If you take away the resort fees, like when I went, it would be like $20 a night. And yeah, when you're there as compared to the other hotels within Vegas, you're like, oh, this is definitely the cheaper kind of one where people are going to not, even if you didn't even see how much it costs to stay there, you'd be in there and go, oh yeah, this is the cheaper place. This is, but so yeah, that's definitely the cheapest hotel I've ever stayed at. But the worst hotel, I'm trying to think if I've ever had a horrible experience at a hotel. No, I can't really think of one that's happened, at least not in like the last, I mean, it's probably happened to me. I probably stayed in some bad hotels as a kid. I just can't think of it. And at the time, it just felt like nothing. So, but if I'm thinking of as an adult choosing hotels, I mean, like I was even telling, because there was a buddy of mine who was looking for hotels and trying to drive up all different parts of California, and he was finding hotels that were like $80. And I was like, I don't even know how I haven't stayed at a hotel that's been under $150 or not right around there. I guess I'll say under $120. I'll say that. I can't remember the last time I've done something like that. Maybe it's just because I've been living in LA for quite some time now. But yeah, but if you're staying at a hotel that's like $50-$60, there's probably going to be, who knows, maybe some bed bugs that are going on over there, some people yelling and going crazy, and yeah. So, but again, hopefully that answers the question from earlier. So I'm gonna look at some of these comments we have here. You said, yeah, they have so many deals as well. Yes, yeah. The great thing about Flying Blue. So he's talking about Flying Blue. So I would, if I could, I would park. I mean, I value, because you can book many of those flights using Virgin Atlantic, not all of them, but so I find there being more versatility with Virgin Atlantic. Since there's like, I don't know, just certain awards that I'd rather do with Virgin Atlantic. So for that reason, I have it set. I will probably put more points there as compared to Flying Blue. Plus the transfer bonus tends to be 30 as compared to 25 of Flying Blue, or sometimes 20, I believe, of Flying Blue. But the cool thing about the Flying Blue program is how often I've been able to see many seats available for people to be able to book in business class with Flying Blue. So one of the big challenges that people have is people looking around going, okay, well, I want to book a business class flight. Now, if you are a single adult like myself traveling, if you just do a little bit of research, chances are you're going to be finding seats available. You're going to be finding, like, I will see sometimes people complaining about, I can't find it's like, no, if you're looking for just yourself, you just need to do a little bit more research, because you're probably going to start seeing stuff. Now, if you need to find like the greatest and best things out there, yeah, it might be, take some more time to figure out how to do those. But for a single person, it ends up not being as difficult. But if you're looking for like 3 people, if you are your spouse, and your child, then it becomes significantly harder to find award space. So a great example of it would be something like Iberia has I believe, the cheapest business class that you can get over to Europe. It ends up being 34,000 points, and you can do it from the East Coast of the US to get over to Madrid. But I've only ever seen 2 seats available at max, and that ends up being as far in advance as you can be. And they have a lot of business class seats available. It isn't like there's 8 seats like it's a first class cabin. There's a bunch of them. But when you end up looking at something like that, it's like if you want to book for 3 people, I mean, maybe I'm wrong and they end up some days having it and I just have missed out on all those times. But chances are you're not going to be able to book with Iberia. But when you look at something like the Flying Blue program, I've seen 7 seats available. I've seen like not consistently all the time you see that, but I've seen 4 seats. I've seen 3 seats. I've seen many times, definitely 2 seats be available at the Save Reward availability of 50,000 points. Now, the challenge that people end up having with the Flying Blue program is that you have to pay high taxes and fees. And I understand that. But let's factor in, if we were thinking about it as being, and this is what I try to tell people as they are looking at making these bookings, is if you factor in, it's going to usually be under $300. And by the way, if you're booking with Flying Blue, book with Air France, because KLM more times than not charges higher taxes and fees. Just compare the two, because you can book the same flight. You'll notice that KLM, it's probably got to do something with their government taxes, but KLM will charge you some, like Air France might charge you $219. KLM will charge you $249. There's no reason to make it. Makes no sense. Just book it with Air France. The taxes and fees may end up being, let's say let's just go up. Let's go higher than it end up being. Let's say it's $300. Okay. So you have $300 in taxes and fees that you may end up needing to pay. Okay. So it's $300 in taxes and fees. You get 50,000 points to end up costing. If you can end up getting yourself a transfer bonus, you're probably going to end up getting it near like 40,000 points. So 40,000 points along with $300 in taxes and fees. Now I'm kind of saying the tax fees are a little higher than they would be, but just for the example. So if you're looking at that and you were looking at a cash rate, say you end up having something like Citi Thank You points. So the most you'd be able to get for that is be $400. And then you look at the $300 in tax and fees, even though it'll probably end up being lower, but let's just say that $700. So if you're looking at round trip, would end up being $1,400 is what it would cost you. Now, can you find an economy seat over to Europe and back for under $1,400? For sure you can. You probably end up seeing on average, it will be somewhere near along the lines of, I would guess, it depends on which airline you're flying with. If you go with the cheapest one, you may be able to find it for cheaper than this. But if you're looking with something like, for example, going over to Paris, it's with Air France, you're probably looking at along the lines of between like $900 to like $1,100 is what you're going to see it at. So to ask yourself the question of, would you pay an additional $200 each way for an upgrade to business class? And if you were to ask most people, I guess, yeah, essentially what the math would end up being if I'm doing it correctly. If it ends up being like $900, ends up being $1,400 as a cash out rate, then $250. Okay. Would you pay $250 for an upgrade to business class? There's people who pay that for domestic first class upgrades. How much is it? $200. Cool. Let's do it. Like I've even seen videos where people talking about that when they flew over to Hawaii, asking how much it would be for business class upgrades in all Hawaiian Airlines, which they do have their new Hawaiian business class that actually looks pretty nice with the door and everything like that. But I've seen people were saying they paid, it was like $900 for an upgrade on Hawaiian Airlines to fly from LA to, so you wouldn't pay a couple $100 to have round trip. I guess technically it'd be a couple $100 each way for business class. So yes, the taxes and fees are higher on Air France or Flying Blue. And I know that we all want to try to pay as little out of pocket as possible, but we have to take into consideration what would end up being the cash out rate for these things. And that's how I like to look at what things would cost. Because if the fare ended up being 70,000 miles with only $5 in taxes and fees, that people might jump on it, even though if you end up doing the math of what the cash out rate is, it's pretty much ends up being like the same thing. So that's my 2 cents on that. But yeah, you know me, for people who've watched before, I sometimes go on these rambles, have fun with it. Hopefully you all enjoy listening to it. So I'm going to jump down more. Let's see. You say, I haven't really stayed in a bad hotel either. Yeah. I mean, I know I've heard horrible stories and you see them in movies and things like that, but I've only kind of been really weirded out at some like motels, but hotel wise, nope. Oh, I've done pretty well. So Lynn says, I will be staying at the Conrad Osaka and Doubletree Osaka. Brand new, just opened in May. Awesome. Fantastic. Nice. Yeah, I remember you were saying, if I remember correctly, that you were having an issue trying to find the award availability to even get over there. So I'm assuming you found the awards that I feel like you maybe already told me this. I apologize. But I remember you were saying that you're having difficulty finding some space over there. but it seems like you found it. Osaka's really cool. They have like what do they call it? The kitchen of the world or something. I forget exactly what they call it, but great food over there. The octopus balls that they have. Definitely had fun. Conrad Osaka is very nice. They treat you fantastic there. In fact, being at the Conrad in Osaka really made me kind of question, I'll say, maybe my loyalty to Hyatt, because I was like, man, they are treating me fantastic here. I got the breakfast was great, as the free breakfast being a gold member. Or I guess it was also part of Fine Hotels. But then also just like the view of the upgrade, everything that I had there, the way they treated, awesome. I definitely like Conrad. You're going to love it at that property. Please post about it, Lynn. Yeah, definitely, Lynn. What's going on? Frugal Dad. I was going to do Conrad Osaka as well. Nice. What's going on, John? Tim, how you doing? Do you book one-way, one-way flying or round trip? What benefits either way? So you're going to want to book for the vast majority of the time. Like, I would just say yes, one way is the way you want to do it. Technically, there are some programs like ANA where you book round trip with them, but for the most part, you book one way. So the reason why you wouldn't book one way when you end up looking at something like if you were to book with, say, American Airlines or something like that, is because for some programs, if you book, and I'm talking about for cash. Sorry, what I'm saying right here. The reason why you wouldn't want to book one way with something like American Airlines for a cash fare is because if you booked American Airlines for a cash fare one way, it may end up being more expensive than booking round trip. This isn't always the case. So you may end up booking one way with American Airlines, and then the price will end up being this is the price, and they'll both equal out to being, let's say, $250 to be $500 for a round trip. But then there's some where if you booked it round trip, it ended up being $400 because they drop it a little bit. But it's not always the case. This is the reason why Google Flights is great, because you can end up seeing, well, it may end up being that they would give me a little bit cheaper, but then United also gives me cheaper on the way coming back. So it makes sense to fly American there and then United back. But with points and miles, the reason why I want to book one way is there's a number of different reasons. First, if you want one, just finding availability, looking at round trip is going to become a pain because now you need to find things both ways and you're going to need to look with the same airline. So if you are looking to, say, fly over to, let's just throw out a place. We'll go over to Japan. You're looking to fly over to Japan. You found ANA business class over to Japan. Fantastic. Now you're looking for a flight back home. And if you're using it with ANA now, or let's use it away from ANA, let's say you used it with a partner program, but you booked an ANA flight. Now that flight back home, if you're looking for round trip, you're trying to see what you can find with that partnership within Star Alliance. Versus if you book the one way with Air Canada to be flying on ANA, but then you're looking for to come home, you might see business class on Japan Airlines using your American Airlines miles. So this is the reason why you would want to, if you only had, so that's one of the reasons. So because you would be able to find availability with a number of different options. This is the reason why, and I'm going to make a video about it, why I tell people diversifying points is so important. And I know so many people just like to have points with one program, or they like to see their points just stack up in a program, or they just feel really comfortable with using certain programs. But when you diversify your points, you open up the options for what's available for you. Now, obviously, you need to learn about these options. You need to figure out what you can even use these other points for. But when people say, like I got myself the Hawaiian Airlines miles or the Hawaiian Airlines business card, and I know maybe no one else in this entire chat or even in the group of people on YouTube who are making videos about credit cards are probably even talking about the Hawaiian Airlines card. Why would you use that? Are you only going to use it for Hawaii? Possibly. Maybe I'll go to Hawaii. Maybe I could use the Hawaiian Airlines flights to go from Hawaii over to Auckland, to go over to Korea, to go over to, there's many different places I can go to. So what that does now is that gives me the opportunity, if for some reason I'm like, you know what, I want to go over to Auckland and I can't find any flights getting over to Auckland in business class. Well, now I have something that maybe other people aren't looking at, which can end up being this flight going over with Hawaiian Airlines to be able to go over to Auckland. So this is the reason why you want to book one ways, to wrap it all up, is because you're going to be able to find availability easier if you're looking for one ways as compared to trying to do the entire thing altogether. Also, one of the reasons why you're going to want to book one ways is because if there ends up being some type of error with your, not error, if there ends up being some type of change you need to make with the booking, you're going to have to cancel the entire thing possibly, as compared to maybe you only want to cancel a part of it. So, yeah, you don't want to have that happen. Like some of the programs, you're going to end up doing certain changes, but and it can work out for your favor. But sometimes with the programs, they're going to make you cancel possibly the entire thing. So it just ends up being so much easier to be able to do it that way. Yeah, just definitely. Like when I had to call into Virgin Atlantic for the ANA first class, I did them both as one way. And then the person was like, "Do you not want to book that all together?" And I was like, "No." And I remember that for some reason, the gentleman he put my middle name in one and then he didn't have it in the other. And I remember being worried about, does it matter to even have it? Even though I try to never put it. I forget why I even gave him my middle name. Usually when they ask me, I just say I don't even have one. But I think just it was just an accident. Be like, yeah, this is what it is. Because I haven't had the issue of, hey, wait a minute, you have a middle name there. But if they somehow misspell it or do something wrong, then now I have to deal with that issue when I go at the airport, and it has to do with the round trip. I don't want to have to deal with all that. So, but I did notice that the gentleman did something different for one of the ways versus the other. But for different changes as well is one of the reasons why you may want to, or why you want to book one ways. But as a whole wrap up, it's going to be easier if you book one ways as compared to if you end up booking round trip. Just do the same thing you did for the way you went there. Just do it coming back. And if you have other programs you can use as well for different options, you can take advantage of those. Flying Blue is awesome. Yes, it is. I've been contemplating transferring Marriott points to AA with the current Marriott transfer bonus. Yeah, I think I heard someone. I feel like I've read that someone's talking about that in the blog where they were debating about doing that, because I forget exactly what is the transfer bonus. So in theory, you could be able to transfer it over, and then it'd be something like getting AA points at like 1.5 cents. I could be messing up the math. I probably should scroll down to see what you would tell me what the math is. But I wouldn't do that, because there'd have to be like a very specific flight that I want to do. And here's the thing. I value AA miles more than any other airline program. I think that they have the best when it comes to not only like cheapest awards for some incredible flights, but also when it comes to the versatility of being able to cancel, rebook. There's just so much great about American Airlines miles that I put them above all. But if we're talking about, if I had a bunch of Marriott points and I have a video where I kind of talk about that a little bit, where I don't really value Marriott points that much, then I would say, you know what, I don't even care if you transfer them over to AA. I mean, it might not end up being the greatest deal, but you may be able to find some AA flights that can work out better for you as compared to Marriott stays. But if we're talking about grabbing from the transferable currencies, then I don't agree with it there, because you probably can find a booking with one of the AA partners using those transferable currencies, just finding it at a different spot. So instead of booking Etihad first class with AA, and then doing that conversion rate, I'd have to do the math to see exactly what it ended up being, but would it end up being cheaper booking it over with Etihad itself and then just getting a transfer bonus? So that's something I have to like really look at the math at. When I first looked at it, I go, oh, it's an interesting thought. And I even saw some people saying, I don't know, maybe it was even you. I read a lot of different forums and things like that, and hear what people are talking about and people asking questions. I don't really comment enough. I do know that a lot of other people are way better at me than commenting, but I like to just like analyze it, think about it, and then take in the information. But I would say in initial thoughts, no. But if you had a very specific AA booking, possibly. And then also check to see what other program within I don't remember which one's transferring over to Marriott currently. I could probably check that. Actually, I have right here where I'm going to be talking about transfer partners later on. So maybe I could, or transfer bonuses. Who's currently transferring over to Marriott? So Chase is. No, I wouldn't do it with Chase. because then I don't know. You transfer over 1,000, get it 14. So if you transfer over 100,000, let's do the math. You transfer over. Even with the bonus, it's still too expensive. It'd be like getting them at like 1.5. I'm gonna say no. Like I would have to really do the math to see whether or not it can make sense, but it just made me thinking about it. It's probably, I almost imagine that you can find the same deal with just another partner connected with Chase as compared to transferring over to AA. Pseudo you in the venture Discord. So you all talking here. Oh, you're saying you saw someone get approved for the Sapphire Preferred or one of the Sapphires at 1024. Yeah, it's a possibility. I know that you asked that question on in like one of my community posts that I put up. If anyone is looking to get one of the Sapphire cards, I do have a link. You probably have seen many people made videos and talk about it. There is an elevated offer of getting 75,000 points as a welcome offer for both the Sapphire Preferred and the Sapphire Reserved. There is another offer if you end up going in store. I believe, if I remember that correctly, it ends up being 85,000 points, but the additional 10,000 points comes with an additional $2,000 spend. You can determine which one ends up being better for you, whether or not it makes sense for you to go into the place, do the entire fill out there, have your time there as compared to home. If you can make the 2,000 additional spend very easy, get yourself the additional 10,000 points. Or if you just want to be able to sign up for it at home, you can be able to do that. And just remember, if you've had the card for 4 years, then you are probably, well, depending on where you are, 524, if you end up getting approved, you still can end up being entitled to get yourself another welcome offer. So you could downgrade it to a Freedom card, and then you would have, if you could get approved, you'd be you'd have the potential of being able to get that welcome offer again. Oh, you're saying yes, that's you, or are you talking to me? Oh, so yeah, maybe it was within. I can't remember which one it was. Hey, what's going on, Chad? How we doing? Welcome. Let's see. Alrighty. Good to see people here. Just started my miles and points journey, so I haven't transferred to anywhere yet. Great. Welcome to the game or the world of points and miles. The world of points and miles. So I'm going to come back to you just 1 second. So I see I got a super sticker. Thank you so much, Tim, for giving me that super sticker. I really, really appreciate that. It means a lot. Anyone who is going to give me the super sticker, super chats, any of these people who are my my group members, I'm very thankful for all of you all. I am going to be giving out more different gifts to my different members as well. If anyone wants to become a member, you can help support the channel. I have been giving out different gifts to my members. Just kind of, it hasn't been like everyone gets stuff, but it's been kind of like raffling off things to different members. But thank you so much, Tim, for giving that. I really, really appreciate it. So Frederick saying you just entered into the game of points and miles, you haven't transferred. So I am very happy to hear that you are now in the game of points and miles. One of the things I will say is don't get yourself to the point of analysis paralysis to where you were just looking at so many programs and all of a sudden you start going, well, which one's the best deal? What's this? What's that? Because I do feel that there's a lot of people, as I was kind of talking about earlier in this live stream, who just kind of like to see their points grow, and then they don't end up actually using them, at least how I think they even imagine that they would, because they just want to try to get themselves either just the insane value or they're just scared to see their points dwindle down. So what I will say is start looking at what you want to try to do, and then be prepared to, transfer over some of those points to the different programs and have yourself an awesome trip. So, yeah. Say ecosystem. Did a video where I talked about using 52,000 Flying Blue miles to book a Delta One flight from JFK to how do you say it, Reykjavik? That's in Iceland. Late October, my first redemption. Very excited. Awesome. Yeah. Great. Yeah, that's going to be a really, really cool trip. Delta One is one that I've been seeing more availability pop up lately. I haven't booked any Delta Ones just because I have too many other things booked currently right now, and it's just not going to work out for where I want to go. But I wanted to book them because I did United Polaris this year. I did American Airlines first class this year, and I might end up doing JetBlue Mint. We'll see. There's going to be a flight that I got to come home from Boston, so I was thinking about maybe adding that as well. But I've already done JetBlue Mint before. It's currently still my favorite domestic business class. And then I was thinking about doing trying to get a trying to get a Delta One as well, so I could have done. I mean, there's more stuff. Technically, there's now the Hawaiian Airlines, and I guess Alaska doesn't really have like a lay flat, but as a whole, I was like, oh, this would be kind of cool to do all those. But Delta One within the U.S. is almost impossible to find. I'm trying to think if I have seen it. I think I've seen it, but it hasn't been like the real Delta One. And then when it comes to internationally, I've been seeing more things, but just the timings of where it is hasn't been convenient for me. But that is awesome. I hope you end up having a try not to curse. I was going to say some, but I hope you end up having a fantastic, fantastic trip. That's really, really cool. I'm very excited for you as well, John. AA business class was a letdown in terms of food. I just did Dallas to BCE, AA business, Air France business on the way back was night and day. Yeah, even just like domestic, it was funny because I did A&A first class late January, and then I had to go to a wedding in Boston, and I did American Airlines, the domestic first class, the only current domestic first class we have. And like, it's like so many levels above the A&A first class was just literally, I understand that it's also significantly more expensive if you were to pay out of pocket, but just the experience was the champagne with American Airlines it was terrible. You might see my video, I'm drinking it, but I remember being like, this is horrible, man. And I did kind of write it in because I'm trying to be happy in some of my videos. And I don't, because, there's some people who make the videos and they can get the controversy, which will add people to want to watch their stuff more. But for me, I'm thankful for a lot of the things that, being able to have these experiences. So I want to see them all, have my nose up at this champagne that I have where everyone else is stuck in the back, just crammed up together in the seats. So, but yeah, my American Airlines domestic first, I did it twice. The domestic first class, I did a round trip from Boston to here for the wedding I went to. Was I'll say that I really liked the Sunday. I don't know if you got the Sunday. So I liked that. And then what did I have? The brisket coming back, I think was okay. And even the American Airlines flagship lounge, I guess because they don't have the flagship dining anymore, I thought it was nice, but I was like, everyone was raving about it so highly. And maybe it's just, again, because I was just went to the A&A first class lounge in Haneda Airport, where it's like the people around you think that you're like a king, the way that they're just like waiting every 2 seconds to try to. I'm like, hey, listen, you can go do whatever you want. Like, I'm not like uncomfortable by them, but I feel bad that they like are waiting almost hand in knee to serve me in any way that they can. Versus the American Airlines lounge, which I did like how many options of foods that they have, but I felt the food it felt like, I think I said in my video, so maybe it's not too controversial, but I felt like it was like, okay, at the Centurion Lounge with more food options. Whereas when you go to the United Polaris Lounge, I feel like that's a step above. I know other people will say that the AA flagship first class lounge is better, but if you were to ask me Polaris Lounge, I mean, the dining, just the whole entire setup of the Polaris Lounge, I liked it a lot better. So yeah, when you end up doing the comparison, this is one of the nice things about trying out different airlines. And that's one of the things that I did this year where, for the most part, there's some things that I'm redoing, but for the most part, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to book on different aircraft or different airlines just so I can experience these other ones. Because even though I may enjoy this one more or this one has the best deal, I still want to see what else other things are out there. So I'm looking forward to my Air France. I'm going to have that not too long from now when I fly home from Europe. So I'm curious, did you have the new Air France business class, or did you have the older model? Says the reserve. Let's see. Nice. Going to so One Way Travel says hitting Japan this week. That's awesome. Cool. So everyone's saying what's up in the chat. Alrighty. So Son says, I love your guidance. I might need your service in the future. Thank you. Yeah, definitely. You can email me. There's cheaptravelknowledge@gmail.com is where like I message people back and forth. There is the link to like another email that is from my website, but there's something that's going on with me sending emails from that where sometimes people don't receive it. So I just have this other one as well. But yeah, hit me out for the service. I just had someone not too long ago. There was another person who I was I have different options on things to do. What a lot of people like to do is just learn how to actually go about the ways of award bookings. And someone I just recently helped, as I was just going through it with them, we saw like the award that the person was looking for, which doesn't always happen that way. I don't even know if they booked it. I haven't heard from that person since, but yeah, hit me up. Let me know. I'll be happy to help you out. Great Polaris video, by the way. Oh, thank you. Yeah, Polaris. I've flown to Polaris a few times already, but I've always been like the food was not great. I love the lounge. The Polaris lounge is fantastic, but the food I had an issue with on the plane, except for this time flying home. I can't even remember what I ate. I can't remember what I ate. You have to check out my video to see what I ate there. But what I do remember is that I was like, wow, this isn't bad. So I remember in which I should hope for better than that. But in my mind, I remember the last time I had Polaris food. I remember like, this is not good. And I remember even I've flown United Economy internationally as well. And the food was even worse. It was like so bad. But for coming home from Sydney, the food was definitely an upgrade. So I really, really liked that. Let's see. Yeah, lounge was decent. But yeah, no flagship dining was a big miss for me. Shower was nice though. Yeah, that is nice. Cool. Older model. Yep. The same thing I'm going to be on. It's interesting because I know people who, I don't know how controversial this is, but this is just my feeling. People who so badly want to do, if you have the older model, you end up having the ability to do what do you call it? What is the first class? The first class for Air France. I forget what the first class for Air France is called. La Premiere. So you have the ability to do La Premiere. They used to have it where if you could do it with points and then you could pay the cash fare upgrade. Now you can't do that. But even with the cash fare upgrade, I always look at La Premiere and I always wondered why people were so much wanting to do that as compared to like, it looks cool, but it doesn't look cool for how much it's going to be costing. It doesn't even look that cool to me, to be honest. I feel like there's so many better first class. I think what the thing about that one was just how exclusive it is kind of like one of the reasons why so many people want to book it. I do think that they do have a great lounge, and then you do have the experience if you are over in Paris, then bring you over to the airplane. But yeah. What do? I'm a man of mystery. I'll leave it at that. I remember you talking about the food. Yeah, cool. Sorry if you've been asked. No, people, yeah, I get asked all different questions. Don't mind answering most of them, but try to keep the who I am online versus in person a little bit separate. Okay, so back to transferring over your points to different programs. I didn't realize I was still on the screen. Well, I'm about to go back to that screen. Sorry about that. I guess it doesn't matter. You guys can see a bigger, my face bigger. But anyways, looking at the different transfer partners. So one of the things that or transfer bonuses. So one of the things that I like to tell people, especially when people are doing helping people do assisted bookings or people just doing consultations with me, is to look at transfer bonuses and also look at patterns. So one of the reasons why I value different points at different levels can also end up being the consistency of transfer bonuses. So there's a reason why I look at American Express membership reward points, and I value their points when it comes to with airlines specifically at a higher rate than I do other ones, because of how consistently or frequently, I guess is a better word, they end up doing transfer bonuses as compared to other programs. So currently right now, you have the transfer bonuses. So this is on Frequent Milers website. I always recommend people check this out. They have a great page for anyone who wants to get information about points and miles. But we got a 30% transfer bonus to Virgin Atlantic. We got 30% transfer bonus over to Qatar, which if you have Avios, you pretty much end up going through all different type of Avios programs. If you know, I'll link it all up. We have it over here as well to Aeromexico, which I wouldn't recommend. Although I haven't looked at the program too much, but I don't think that's that great. And also another 30% transfer bonus over here to Virgin Atlantic. And then there's like a hotels from City. But the Limitless or Core. But for me, the thing that I'm noticing is that as I have my points in different programs, I'm wanting to redeem these points with the programs. So as I said kind of earlier, I don't really recommend everyone to just do it this way, especially if you don't really know how to book with it. But what you can end up seeing is just the different frequencies or just the different history of when the different points transfers have been happening. So on Frequent Milers website, if you scroll down, it lets you know different ones that have expired and then when they happened. So you know that there's a 25% transfer bonus from Chase over to Flying Blue that happened in March through April. But then if you scroll down, you probably end up seeing when the last one was. The reason why this is important is then you can kind of start to realize the pattern of when there may end up being a transfer bonus again, or to which program they end up being able to do it. And then also you may end up seeing, as I said, you see American Express's names here a lot more than you probably end up seeing other programs' names, just because of how often they also have more airlines, but just because of how often they end up doing these different transfer bonuses. But one thing that I've noticed is, for me, I've had it more often to where I've wanted to take advantage of a transfer bonus I've wanted to book something and then a transfer bonus wasn't there. And I've been like, I wish I had the transfer bonus, at least from the program that I've wanted. And then didn't end up taking it. And then can't say I didn't end up taking advantage of it, but then being like, I missed out on it, versus me transferring the points and then there being a massive devaluation and being like, oh no, I just lost all the value in that. Again, I'm not telling everyone here to do speculative transferring, but what I am saying is that if it ends up being to a program that has a transfer bonus, I don't think it ends up being, especially if you know how to make bookings, as horrible as some people may make it out to seem. Yeah. So, hey, we got Cesar on the house. What's going on? Welcome. Happy to have you here on this Friday night. It was probably super late over for you. I don't even know what the hour difference is where you are compared to LA, or even just New York. I don't know what your hour difference is over there. So I guess the thing that I start to notice is that I'm okay with having points, and I can't say I started to notice. The thing that so you have the same. Okay, so you got the same time as just East Coast. Cool. Cesar's let me know the time. Same time as just East Coast time. I don't know why I was thinking you were because how Hawaii is. I don't even know what the time is in Hawaii, because I don't think that they do. They don't do daylights. I know it's obviously not as far from Hawaii as compared to New York to Puerto Rico, but I'm thinking just could have been different hours. I don't know why I thought it was, but I guess it's all the same. I'm just noticing that when I had points in programs, there was an award that I was looking at, and I don't know what I would have did with it, but I was debating about booking it because it looked cool, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do it. And then when I realized that I didn't have the points transferred over in the program, and then when I started to look to do that, and then I was like, well, wait, let me look at, and I kind of took my time, went back to it, and then realized that the award booking was gone. So that's why I started to go, if I had it already in there, I probably would have just jumped on this award, because when you already have your points in different programs, you start to feel more that you want to make award bookings. So now I know I forget who was saying that they were brand new here. Don't do this as for the person who's brand new, but for the people who've been studying points and miles, even just for a little bit, start to think about, if you did transfer over your points to these different programs, have them ready. Are you going to start trying to make bookings with those points in that program? It's almost like incentivize you. It puts a little fire under your butt to start to make you make these bookings. Yeah. I'm just going to quickly look down. I had some notes written down here. I forget what I had. Which transfer partner? Oh, so yeah. So even just looking at like what I wrote here, which ends up being which transfer partner ends up being the most common. So, or what's my favorite transfer partner? I think it ends up being pretty easy answer that I transfer my points most frequently to World of Hyatt because it ends up being something where I'm going to end up going to more often than I will like a specific airline. So because I'm not really loyal to any airlines, I am more loyal to Hyatt because of the status and because I just end up getting a better deal with them versus other programs. So Hyatt, I think, is an easy answer. When I start looking at different airline programs, that's what I'm curious of. Is so we had people say earlier, Flying Blue, favorite airline program, but I would say that like when I look at my favorite airline program to transfer over my points to, I just got so much value in the last, I'll say, year for sure with Virgin Atlantic. There's just been a number of different times where I've booked with Virgin Atlantic, not specifically even on Virgin Atlantic, just using their miles for other things. And I'm pretty confident that my having miles with Virgin Atlantic are going to be used easily for good value. So now the cool thing ends up being that depending on which alliance you end up looking at can end up seeing which program may end up being better for you to have your points transferred over to. So like one thing I noticed is that I have points, or I guess not one thing I noticed, one thing that I've done is that I have points with British Airways. I have points with Virgin Atlantic. I have points, and the next thing I need to have my points fill up with is going to end up being, it's probably going to end up being Air Canada, just because even though Avianca does a lot of the times end up having a better deal, sometimes the award, it doesn't even show up. You can't even have the customer service person even have it all situated for you. And the website there's sometimes I can't even make the bookings. I can't even do the search on the computer or on my phone or vice versa, where this ends up being an issue. So Avianca could be a great program. It probably is. If you look at the best deals with Star Alliance, it's probably with Avianca, but there's many times where I've had issues with Avianca and I feel like it's not as reliable. So if depending on the transfer bonus for like something such as an Air Canada, the tax and fees would end up being higher as compared to Avianca, but it could end up making a ton of sense. So I do want to get myself some airplane miles, just a nice little bank. I'm not talking about putting in like transfer all my points from my transferable currencies, but something I've noticed is that when I have my points in these different airline programs, now as I see my points building in my current transferable currency banks, whether it be Chase, whether it be Capital One, whatever the heck it is, I don't need to transfer those at the time. They're just building because I already have points in other things. So whatever I have at that is probably going to be that for a while because I just need to use up these other miles in other programs. So that's kind of like what I've been really working on doing, is just using up my miles from, using my Alaska miles, which I've been doing really well lately. But even still, I got quite a few of them over the past few years. But just using that, I used up most of my United miles. I wish I could just use them all. I'm not a fan as much of United. They've just been doing like crazy devaluations. So, but I do think having I know people are not as big of a fan. Some people are not as big a fan of diversifying. People go, you have all these points in all these different spots. And I love that. I love having, at least as long as I have enough. If you have like 3,000 in a spot, then yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt that you can't really do much with that. But if you end up having 70,000 in a spot, somewhere near 100,000 in a spot, then that you have the ability to make a booking with that. You just have to see what ends up being available for the time you end up making the booking. So Cesar here right now. I've transferred points speculatively to Air Canada. Yeah, you literally are. You just said exactly what I said. Cesar, I'm curious of Air Canada versus Avianca. I mean, I'm pretty sure Avianca has better deals. Just if you look at more of them. But how often have you been using Avianca at all? Because Avianca has some great deals. It just ends up being that I just have found there's been times where I've looked where I'm like, oh, cool. I can't because their website is just not like, there's a great use of Avianca if you want to fly on first class with Lufthansa. since I'm going to be seeing my brother who's now stationed out in Germany, I was like, cool, I might want to have it all set up and ready to go. But then sometimes it's available, sometimes it's not. So I've heard some people saying that they took away the availability for that first class, and it's definitely a better deal than what you would see for Air Canada because of the taxes and fees. One, if you get a transfer bonus, you end up being very close. But it's at least that I've seen pretty much like always there on Air Canada, but it's not always there on Avianca. It's the Avianca's just their website drives me. I do think that it's easier to use than not easier to use. It's less frustrating to me than Turkish Airlines website. Turkish Airlines website has made me redo a new password. I couldn't even it has to be 6 times where I'm like, because they want certain numbers and they do a certain thing. And then I can't use the one that I used the last few times. And it just has driven me crazy. And then they had the devaluation, and I was like, I'm never using this program again. It just sometimes, oh yeah, Cesar just said here, Air Canada, easy to use. Yes, sometimes the peace of mind can be worth the yeah. Avianca is painful. Yes. This is one of the things that I even have. This is one of the things I talk about to people when I'm having my consultations and talking about like or just assisted award bookings is like. Peace of mind can end up being highly important, and then also like the question ends up coming down to what level do you end up wanting to do this. I think Spencer Johnson had a video came out. Was it earlier this week where he was talking about he's using Southwest miles. And he was a fan of Southwest, and he was talking about how he likes to transfer his points over to Southwest, and he knew that he wasn't getting as good of a deal, but he was doing it in his head because of the peace of mind. And I even wrote to him, and he was actually took the information I gave him and said, oh, I didn't realize how easy it was to even do like the cancellation with Southwest using the Chase points. So really cool on him. But I also said to him like, hey, listen, I understand when there's sometimes the peace of mind paying whatever certain percentage could end up possibly making sense. But for his situation, it wasn't necessarily that end up being. But at the time, before he knew the additional information, I understood why he may want to do it the way he does. So that can end up being sometimes can end up happening. So hold on. He said to deal with. All you said is Avianca is painful to deal with. They have great deals. Yeah. Oh, we got Luke Points and Miles in the house. I got Avianca even with Air Canada. Yeah, both are top dogs. Yeah, Avianca. So you're right, Luke. Avianca, I think if you look for, it's not every place. If you look for, when you're looking at deals with Avianca, and Air Canada, there are a number of different spots to where Air Canada can end up having so for instance, if you're looking at, I'm pretty sure if you look at flying with like Singapore Airlines, in a number of instances, you're going to find it better with Air Canada as compared to Avianca. But if you are looking for like Lufthansa first class, that's going to end up being 87,000 Avianca miles. I think the tax and fees are like $90 if I remember correctly, versus it's 100,000 Air Canada and the tax and fees are like $250. But it's not even available all the time on Air Canada, so it's kind of ends up being like, what do you do there? Let's see what's up. Guess I've used Aeroplan more often though. Like you said, it's easier and better website. Yeah, just so much better. It just ends up being. Yeah, it just that it like I guess for me, I it's not that I wouldn't transfer over to Avianca. It's like, oh yeah, I transfer over to Avianca for sure. But if I have to have miles sitting in a place, then I'll be very annoyed if I have my miles in Avianca or Air Canada. If I had to choose, and I was like, oh, I see a transfer bonus, take advantage of Avianca's transfer bonus just because I want to have it set up ready for when I see an award and just be able to book it. It doesn't tend to need it as much with Avianca, but sometimes, like with Virgin Atlantic, if you want to book something like some of these different ANA flights, a lot of the times when you see it, you're gonna be like, oh shoot, I need to book this thing. There was one that I was looking at that was doing New York, and I was like, oh, maybe I could go from Haneda to New York, and then I needed to be in New York at the time, so I was like, maybe I could go over to Asia, do something, fly over to New York, and then I'm gonna go to New York, and then I have to go to this wedding. This is not till next year, but then it was very quick that thing was gone. I saw it available. I would have had to call Virgin. I don't know, maybe let's say half an hour, or maybe an hour. I guess I don't know exactly how long I looked for it after, but yeah, it ended up being gone. So I don't think that Avianca ends up needing it to that quick, but I guess so you wouldn't really need to perk in your points into the program. But in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, well, if I want to have my points somewhat set up in a program, just so it's ready to be booked, which I've been doing a lot more frequently lately. Just having points just in programs. And I know, Luke, you even touched on that with some of your award bookings where you've had to cancel things. Now you just have these points set up in a program. But for me, I mean, obviously you don't want to have to, it stinks when you have to cancel stuff. But for me, what that does is that just incentivizes me to use those miles and I hopefully you end up getting it on a transfer bonus and you end up being like, cool, now I can end up having a good deal with these points versus I know people are just, because I just even know people in my real life who just like seeing their points just build up. And they're just like, oh my goodness, I like having this many membership reward points. And so, well, what do you want to do? If you want to do this, you got to get the transfer bonus over to Virgin Atlantic. If you want to do, what is it? Not Alitalia, whatever the new Italian airline is to fly over to Rome, ITA. And they're like, oh, but I don't see the award space. I said, well, maybe you should get it over there. You take advantage of this bonus. Obviously, you want to find the award space for sure. I'm not saying you don't want to find it, but if you can't and you see that the transfer bonus is going to end, and then it's like, if you know this is what you're trying to find, yeah. So that's just me. He said, I did speculative transfer at Avianca during the last 25% bonus. Yeah, I think that ends up, Avianca has, they have, especially if you include the 25% transfer bonus, I don't think you can beat Avianca with Star Alliance deals. Just like collectively all around. I'm not saying 100% of them. You will see Air Canada have some better ones. But collectively, Avianca, I believe, ends up being the best option. Any Memorial Day trips this year, guys? I'm debating between Boston and Miami. Never been in Boston, but Miami is Miami. So I grew up right around the Boston area, so I highly recommend going out there. A lot of really cool history if you're into, like, whether it be baseball or just seeing, just Boston's a cool city. It's like a college town. You can get around, or college city, get around pretty easy, especially in the city, because it's just like the whether you take the T or the things they're very far away from each other. Although the way that the grid system is not grid system is set up in Massachusetts, kind of being annoying to drive. And then you hear people called, I'm saying anyways, mass holes out there because of how we all drive and how everyone's a little more aggressive. But I love Massachusetts. I think that if you've been to Miami before, check out a new place. That's one thing that I've been kind of big on. What I'm trying to do more of. Not even trying to do more of. I try to tell other people to do more of. I've been telling myself that this is what I'm doing. Is even though there's some places that I really like to visit and I just love them, I want to also venture out and just explore more places. So I've been to Miami. I went to Miami. Me and like my brothers, we had like a little we all got together, nice little reunion out in Miami, and it was fun out there. It was really fun. It was in January. This was a few years ago. Weather was perfect even in January. But yeah, I can't knock at least the time. It depends on how long you're going there, what you're trying to do. We went to it was a Patriots versus Miami game. Patriots were terrible. Hopefully they get better this year. But yeah, what did you say? Oh, the Hyatt. Yeah, I've never been to that one. I know of it. Yeah. Yeah, check out Boston. I think you'll have a good time. The people there are very, what can I say? I can say they're kind of like New Yorkers. They're real people. That's the cool thing about Boston and New York as compared to, I say, out here in LA is you have a lot of nice people, but people aren't as real as people may end up being in Boston or New York. And there's a ton of Puerto Ricans in I guess there may also be in New York as well, but definitely in Massachusetts. So you probably end up seeing other Puerto Ricans out there as well. Let's see. John here says road tripping to South Dakota and Wyoming for a week of Memorial Day, going to see the President's Devil's Tower, Black Hills National Park. That's cool. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I have no my next trip. I always try to do a trip in May because May is my birthday month. So this is my birthday month. So for this month, I'm going over to Europe. Gonna explore some places over there, but also visit my brother as well, who is um, in the Air Force. He's a senior master sergeant in the Air Force. I think is it this year? He might have just got through his 20 years being in the Air Force. I know he's still trying to get chief, so he's going to be in there for a little bit more time until he ends up reaching that top level of being a chief in the Air Force. And then he's going to be like Cesar, which I believe Cesar. I don't remember if you said you did 20 years in the military as well, but that's pretty much what my brother's about to do. But right now, him and his wife and his beautiful children, my nieces and nephews, they're all right now stationed out in some place in Germany that I can't pronounce. So when I'm in Europe, I'm going to go over there for a few days, see my nieces and nephews, have a good time. So that should end up being fun. And he's got a nice big place and he wants us all to go. And I'm pretty much the only one in the family who travels. So yeah, I gotta go hang out with him. But I think that like Germany ends up being a really fun place to be. I've been to Germany before. I was there, did Berlin and Munich before. So this is gonna be. I think this place is closer to Frankfurt, the Air Force Base, or where he's at. So it's gonna be cool to go over to Frankfurt. I haven't been there, but Germany, I enjoy Germany. They got great beer out there, Paulaner beer. If anyone's ever had that before. But yeah, Cesar said did 22 years, retired and done. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my brother was trying to get me to join the Air Force when I was, finishing up in high school. And then my mom was like, no, you can't do this. She was already scared of him. He was already getting deployed and going to places. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll try it too. But then decided to go a different path. But it would be interesting if, not too far from now, I could be able to retire and get all that pay, healthcare, and everything for you can get it set up. You just got to put in the time. But yeah, so it's awesome, Cesar. Really, really cool. What we got here? I spent 4 years. ITA, loved it. Been to the base in Germany. Oh, have you been? Cool. Okay, nice. Yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, I've visited him. Let's see. So when he was in Alaska, I went to Alaska. He was in Virginia. We went to Virginia. We was in St. Louis. I didn't go to him in Texas, which I wish I did, but at that time I was so broke and trying to do everything, and there's so many other projects I had going on. And long story short, I just kind of screwed that up. But now I'm just trying to go to him different places he ends up going now, so it's gonna be cool. Like traveling, going over to Germany. What's going on, PG? How you doing, man? Points to my house. Cesar was in the Puerto Rican National Guard. Yeah, I knew he was in. I didn't know which line he was in, and I remember him saying, I was like, I'm pretty sure he said that he's retired, did the 20 years, but I just didn't want to I feel better him confirming it before me just stating it. But man, that's a good deal. I know it's hard to have to, but as you start to move up, get up the ladder, you don't have to take as much people's crap as much anymore, and then you can retire, and my brother's going to be retired at 38 years old, or I guess if he wanted to, he could retire at 38 years old. But or maybe even younger than that. Cause I'm trying to think about what age I don't know, but right around near there, I know Luke, you're a Navy boy. So, but, Air Force, Navy, let's see. I did my last 2 years there. Okay. Cool. They have a National Guard down there. I didn't know. All right, yeah. So let's see. I'm gonna check my notes, see what else I have here. I'm happy to see different creators in here because it's always funny with creators. I see sometimes when we might end up making mistakes with some of our videos. And I just shot a video not too long ago where for some reason, the first part of the video, like the audio just got completely messed up. There's a spot where the audio just gets all messed up, and then the audio is off for the rest of it, which I don't mind having to deattach it and then put that together. That's how I used to edit videos years ago. But just when the audio got messed up, and I'm like, now I got to try to put something over it to kind of mask the errors. But for me, I get a little annoyed. Then I start to laugh because then I just think to myself, I know everyone's dealing with these issues. Everyone who ends up making videos, so I'll sometimes see people have something and they'll have to say, I apologize in the first comment down below. And I don't even care because as soon as you start to make videos, you realize, hey, not everything goes smooth every single time. I don't feel like reshooting this entire thing when it ends up being an issue just from a specific little part. So it's like I'm not even the clothes that I was even wearing aren't even doing the laundry. It's like what I'm going to do. So I just try to do the best you can to try to fix it up. But it's cool to see other creators in here just because I know that the struggle is shared. Oh, we got Dugrass in the house. What's going on? I'm late to the party. Did you already declare your favorite transfer partner? So I was saying that I would say the most common transfer partner that I have is going to be World of Hyatt, but I just kind of quickly went over that because I think that many people, if you do like to transfer to hotels, that's probably going to end up being the one that most people end up doing the most frequently, because chances are if you transfer over to Hyatt, you're probably going to do that more often than you're going to transfer over to one specific airline. I could be wrong, but that's just how I would imagine more people do it, unless you're just very loyal to an airline, which there are people who are. There are people who are like, I wouldn't recommend it, but there are people who just want to transfer over to Delta, maybe transfer over to United. I wouldn't want to United United might be, it's like Delta now. There's obviously spots where it's better, but I'm looking at United miles and I see them just as being like Delta, so I wouldn't even transfer them. But so that's kind of where I was saying about like the hotels. But I was talking about with airlines, I was saying that depending on the different alliances, I've been parking my points in these different alliances because I've just been using them. So I like I don't have many in Flying Blue, but I like Virgin Atlantic miles. I like British Airways. I would say Virgin Atlantic is going to be the one that I've declared to be my favorite because I just have used them a number of times and I've gotten myself, especially when you include the transfer bonus, really good value for my Virgin Atlantic miles, or just good bookings. It's just been many times or number of times where I've booked with them, and also a number of times where I've wanted to book with them, even though I may have not have done it. But I would say British Airways is probably the number 2. Not even British Airways. Let me correct that. Avios itself, because when I transfer over to Avios, I don't think of it as, because even now, by the way, anyone who's been booking with British Airways for American, I feel like I've said this in the last few lives, but I'll just say it again because I see people keep on putting in their videos. I think even I do myself because I know that some people don't want to put in this additional work, but if you link your accounts and you have it so you can transfer or move throughout your Avios, if you're going to be booking American Airlines flights, do it with Qatar as compared to doing it with British Airways. Qatar, at least since the last time I've still looked, still has it as before British Airways' last devaluation that they had with American Airlines. The British Airways with American Airlines still end up being better than the American Airlines and still end up giving you a decent deal. But Qatar, for many cases, end up giving you a better deal. Although there was one not too long ago that I was looking at where I didn't see the ability to be able to make the Qatar booking for some weird reason for a flight on American Airlines, where I did see it on British Airways. I'm not sure why that was, but that's how it would end up going. So I would say that my favorite airline transfer partner is probably Virgin Atlantic. But I do think a lot of people end up having, we were discussing whether it be Air Canada or Avianca, but I do also like Avios just as a whole because I don't see it as being one. I'm going to be flying Iberia again, not too long from now. But then also I did American Airlines flights. I've seen there's so many different great things about Avios. Your Chair Force guys are winning. Oh, sorry. Us Chair Force guys are winning. I guess I don't know what that means. Yes, I did last 2 years in Puerto Rico National Guard as active duty to finish my out process. Cool. Nice. Yes. Thank you, everyone who serves. Which branch? I guess people asking Cesar about his military history. This was too relatable. Oh, you're talking about what? Maybe the issues I have with making videos, or I don't know which one. Have you done any Chase transfer? Sorry. Have you done any Chase portal redemptions? The U.S. Bank portal has some decent deals. I have. Have I ever? Maybe at some point. It's been. If I have, it's been a very long time since I've done any Chase portal redemptions, because. So I have a video. I have a few videos that are coming out that are going to be just talking about a number of these different a few different topics. But for myself, when I end up looking at redeeming my points through Chase's travel portal, I guess other than if you look at sign up bonuses you end up getting and referrals, certain things like that. If we're talking about actual spend with the Chase card that you're going to be earning your different points, if you end up looking at a cashback setup, the odds are, I guess, unless you end up doing the ink trick, so there are things there are ways and variables, I guess, against what I'm saying, but just for a normal cashback setup, the odds are that a cashback setup, you're going to be earning more cashback than what you'd be earning in points, even though you end up getting a 25% transfer bonus or a 50% transfer bonus. Now, if at the 50% transfer bonus, right around at that level, you're going to be probably earning a similar amount of cash back. The only difference is that it's cash back that can be used towards anything. So this is the reason why I don't find it overly valuable to be using the travel portal, the Chase portal, because when I look at it, I go, well, wait a minute. Why not just have cash and then be able to do what I want with the cash? And then it starts to come down to, even if it is a little bit more with the travel portal, then you have to ask yourself the question, to what level do you start to see that it makes sense? What I mean by that is, if you could have earned $500 in cash versus $600 that you could use through Chase's travel portal, I'm not saying that people wouldn't use it through Chase's travel portal. But what I am saying is that unless you had a specific booking that you knew you wanted to do, or for many of us who are really deep into the points and miles game, maybe we would see that and go, okay, well, I know that I'm going to want to use the $600 through that. But I think in many cases, you're going to start looking at it and going, well, give me the $500 in cash. I'm going to take the $500 in cash because I know that not only can I use it towards that, I can use it towards anything. So I find it to be more valuable that way. Now, if you start saying that you're going to be redeeming for travel that's end up being instead of $500, $900 to $1,000, that starts to be where people will go, well, wait a minute. Okay, well, if you're going to be getting yourself double the value as compared to what the cashback is, then you start to, that's going to put pause, because then you're going to start looking at it and going, okay, well, this could be like an entire trip if I can end up getting myself this travel redemption as compared to the cashback. The cashback is good, but the way I think examples that I put it at can end up being like, if you went to a Target, if someone was asking you, at Target, hey, I have a Target gift card that I'm offering, someone who worked for Target, and if you give me cash, I'll give you the Target gift card. What amount of the Target gift card are you going to need for you to have to give them the $100? So, long answer to what you have just said there about using Chase's travel portal. The reason why I wouldn't use it is because of the fact that if I'm not getting myself near, like, I'm not fixed on cents per point, but if I'm not getting myself at least 2 cents, then I start to wonder, why not just use cashback? That ends up really being the argument. Now, there are ways you can end up maximizing using Chase and then taking advantage of all the different stuff outside of this. But I think that for most people, like, I think Douglas is really good at how he goes about it for his redemptions. But I think that for most people, when you end up looking at it, you go, okay, well, if you used a cashback setup as a whole, would you have either a better return, or would you have, when you look at the two options, would you have the cashback as an option that you might end up finding to be better choice as compared to what you redeemed as your for your travel. How do you feel about Mr. and Mrs. Smith integration into the world of Hyatt? It's terrible. There's not going to be a reason pretty much. So you can book with cash. Sorry, I got to drink some water. I haven't had a sip for an hour and 20 minutes of talking. You can book with cash and have it make sense for Mr. and Mrs. Smith if you see some that if you want to get yourself elite nights. And then I don't even know how even the earning points part even works with this. I feel like it's not even good there either. But as a whole, if we're comparing it to what the small luxury hotels of the world are, as compared to that, it's like they got rid of it being like, oh, we're getting Mr. and Mrs. Smith to almost make us believe that it was going to be on the same level as that. No, the small luxury hotels of the world, while there were many properties where I would see sometimes that have a property that'd be like $370, but it would end up being a category 5 and costing 20,000 points. I've seen that a lot of times where I'd be like, hey, this isn't the greatest of deal, but they still stayed in that award chart. So that to me is like, okay, well, at least you're doing that. And then like part of my trip to Europe, I'm gonna be staying at the Palazzo Manfredi. That is a hotel that is going to give me at least 2 cents per point when it comes to if you're looking at the points value. But it's the top category, so I know that that's the max. Whether if it was $600 a night or if it was $6,000 a night, that ends up being what it's going to cost me. So if you end up having it where the Mr. and Mrs. Smith integration, which I think Hyatt's like testing it out to see how this ends up working out. Regardless, Hyatt might end up making money. I just don't think they're going to end up making money through themselves, except for with people doing cash bookings because, well, you know what? They probably will because the reality is that most people don't even pay attention to the value of their points. So most people, for myself, it's terrible. I'm never going to book. I'm not going to spend 110,000 World of Hyatt points for, a property that ends up costing $1,200. I'm not going to do that. Like Hilton will have better value for their points at the rates. You could find a Hilton property that's a high-end property that may end up having a better value than what you're going to be getting with Hyatt, with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And Hilton points you can earn significantly easier than you can World of Hyatt points. But the reality is that for people who aren't paying attention, they're probably going to see Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties. They're going to have their points, and they're just going to redeem them at some of their properties because a lot of people, they're not even paying attention to what they're getting in value. All they're seeing is that they're not paying cash. So that to me is the problem that I have with the not pay cash people is that if you do it in a way where you're smart, that's the reason why I said, like, I think Dugrass does it really well. Because if you're doing it in a way where you're smart and seeing that, hey, I'm trying to get good value while also not paying cash, great. But there's a lot of people who just like, I just don't want to pay cash. Well, then, okay, you go buy yourself some golf equipment on, through United, and it's going to cost you 300,000 United miles. And you got yourself $2,000 worth of golf equipment. And it's like, you don't realize how you might as well just got cash back. It doesn't make any sense. But we'll see how many people end up doing it. My feeling is that anyone who's newer to Hyatt may end up doing it and going, okay, well, whatever. But even people who just want the free, if you have redeemed with Hyatt before and you see that a property is going to cost 96,000 points, it's going to make you go, why the heck is this one so much more than the other one? I want to like Virgin, but I often find the taxes and fees are too high. My go-to has been Aeroplan and Avios. Yeah, so I like both those other two programs. I said earlier about Flying Blue, where it comes down to if you are someone who's looking at the high taxes and fees, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about flying Virgin Atlantic on Virgin Metal over to London, then yeah, the taxes and fees are it's like $1,000, maybe like right around that price. So if we're talking about that specifically, yes, that is way too much. And even though I think it would be cool to fly on Virgin Atlantic and I would want to do it at some point in business class, the tax and fees are outrageous. So maybe I'll find someone who wants to fly with me. I'll pay the points, they pay the taxes and fees, and that will be the way we go about it. But if you're talking about Virgin Atlantic for tax and fees, and we're talking about for like ITA, which is the Italian airline, if we're talking about, you can end up also booking like Air France stuff with them. You can end up also booking ANA. You can book Hawaiian Airlines. There's so many different places where you end up booking it where the taxes and fees in some of the places like ANA may end up being close to a couple $100. But if a first class flight ends up being 73,000 points and $200, is the $200 really going to stop you from, I mean, I understand that you don't want to pay it. And I used to be that way where I didn't want to have to pay the high taxes and fees, but it's still going to, if you thought about it as being the $200 being additional 20,000 points, then what does it end up being? Now it ends up being like 90-ish thousand points for the first class. And a lot of people look at 90,000 points for a first class still at not being a bad deal. So that's how I like to think about it with the higher tax and fees, at least for the partner program. So if you're talking about specifically booking on Virgin Atlantic for Virgin Atlantic flights to London, the tax and fees are just outrageous. Dougras here. So I'm talking about my favorite redemptions tomorrow. Oh, awesome. Look at us talking about same things. I wasn't intending to copy you. It's okay. Just the way it worked out. So it's funny how that is, Dougras, because so the thing about with me, I don't know how everyone else makes videos, but I'll make video. Like I have a few videos that are made that I haven't released yet, because sometimes what I'll do is I'll record videos and I'll be on record mode. To what I mean by that is like, I'll have written out a number of different things and topics that I want to talk about. So then I'll start writing out different topics. And then I'll be on record mode, I guess is what I'll say to myself, where I'm like, cool, I want to record it this night. And then I wake up early and I want to record it this morning. And then so that I'm constantly want to record the different videos. And then I'm on the editing mode, which is, I don't think most of us like to do it as much. But then they'll be in the mode where it's like, okay, now I'll just edit a bunch of different videos. Obviously, the stuff that I'm talking about doesn't end up being stuff that's like needs to be for a specific time. If there's a new card that comes out, I can't do it and then all of a sudden wait 2 weeks to be able to release it. And right now I'm on thumbnail mode to where I got to just do the darn thumbnails for these videos. But the reality is that there's topics. I mean, I think I even said this to like Chase because he was doing his how to book ANA business class, and I was like, yo, I literally just made a video that was doing the exact same thing except for ANA first class. I wasn't trying to copy your thing. My video is not coming, and I'll schedule my videos for time ahead. So it ended up being but he was just like, oh yeah. But I think a lot of people end up understanding. It's interesting when it ends up being different. Like if people are doing a Chase Sapphire preferred or reserve video right now, I think everyone just expects that we're all going to be releasing videos now because there's an elevated offer for that. But when it ends up being a similar topic of like, hey, what's your favorite airlines points? And then all of a sudden tomorrow you're like, I'm not copying. I understand you probably already wrote it out, but the reality is that even some of the things that I just kind of like ranted on here, I wanted to write it into Chad who wrote here. I didn't complete the video, but it was part of the video I was listening to, and I started laughing because I was like, oh my goodness, one of the videos I just edited not too long ago is talking about some of this stuff, and I was not even getting like inspired from what he was saying. I already made it, but a lot of us end up having a similar thought process, and how we end up getting there is because we're all looking at doing stuff with points and miles. So Cesar says editing is painful. Yes, yeah. Same thumbnail. Hey, it works for you. It works. You got that. Everyone knows. Everyone's looking at it. They're looking for your image, and I wish I could. Like, I see some people have more simple thumbnails, and it can end up being, and they still get a ton of different, like, really good views. I wish I could just do that because I don't want to have to. The thumbnail I know can be very important, but the thing that is weird for me, I don't know, just interesting for me, is that the videos that I've had that have been like some of my most popular videos have just been my hand holding a card. So I'm like, okay, if I don't have my face in the video or in the thumbnail, maybe it'll do better than if I do, but at the same time, you want some type of recognition where people remember you. And then that's what you have, Cesar. So good for you. Hey, it's good that you've been able to get that, because then you get to keep the audience. You don't have to use a ton of time. I think even Anthony Ventura said kind of the same thing, where he's like, he does something similar a lot of the time. So yes, facts, editing blows. Yeah. Yeah. It just depends on what parts of it. Like for me, I don't mind editing a ton. Like what ends up happening is if it ends up being a long edit and you do so much stuff, and then like if you start adding in graphics, I think someone else in one of my more recent videos like add in more graphics, right? And having more things where it's the words on the side, which sometimes I do, and I've had a newer computer, so now everything's rendering a lot faster. But there was times before where I was adding in graphics and then the rendering would take so long. I would get up and have to walk away, come back, and then the words, and I misspelled one of the words, and then now I have to re-render that thing, and I got to come back 20 minutes. It's like, oh my goodness. And then you do all of that work, and then you have the video release, and the video does way worse than the one where you did no work at all. So it ends up being like, like the process of me at least making the video when it comes to or I guess shooting and writing the video tends to be very similar amount of time. Some videos I record for a lot longer, definitely, but the editing, there's way different ranges of how much time I spend on editing for videos, and some of the ones where I don't put listen, I want my product to be, at least I feel comfortable with showing it someone, not feeling embarrassed. But it's just interesting how that can end up being to where people are like, oh, cool, you had this video that you didn't put anywhere near as much work as the other one, yet it gets just as much and yet it gets way less views than the other one. Just want to look and see what other topics I may have had. I think that was most of the stuff I was saying. Let's see. Short. Sorry, everyone. I'm just looking down my phone. I'm just trying to look at my notes. Oh yeah, I guess. Well, that's just more video. I have something here was kind of a question, but it was more of a video topic. But yeah, if anyone has any more additional questions here, let's see what Cesar is saying here. Average around 8 hours in editing, one long form. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And I'm not sure which computer you have, but depending on which program, if you have things that need to render, especially when you're putting in titles and stuff like that, I'm happy I got this new computer, and that makes everything so much better. But sometimes adding in the text, I'm not sure what other people are using, and gosh, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. Was it Josh Butler? I remember talking with him in Vegas. And he put so much time in. I mean, he was saying how much he was putting in. He was like, it would take a week of just I forget. I don't even know. I'm not going to say what he said because I don't know if he wants me saying his whatever, stuff he shared with me. But you can tell from looking at his videos that he puts in an enormous amount of time in editing. And here's the thing: if the quality looks great, it looks so good. But it's like, wow, man, it's like. At that, when you start doing it at that level where you're making the quality look so great, it ends up being like, okay, how many videos can you shoot? How much more information can you give someone? It ends up being, Josh is 20 plus hours. But yeah, I think he said that where it's like, want to lower that down for sure. Yes. Yeah. I think all of us, for me, it's like, yeah, the shooting part haven't had. I mean, I don't have some people got the teleprompter where they're reading off of. I have bullet notes that I put in. Sometimes I'll even write out entire sections if I need certain numbers. I even just had a video that I noticed that I just made an error in it, and it's too late. I already have uploaded, and I'm just gonna leave. But it was off by one number where it's just because I was thinking off the top of my head and I mixed together two different awards. But yeah, definitely try to get down the editing time. And I know some people are saying that they have people who do their thumbnails, which I've thought about getting, but I'm just like, I don't know how much it's really going to make. It could make a ton of a difference, but I don't know. Yeah, I got to get that time down. But yeah, Josh has great when it comes to just his editing, but he also puts in an enormous amount of time. Let's see here. That's crazy. I have a full-time job, so I can't do. Yeah. He does too. And he now he has. So that's the reason why he hasn't been doing as much lately, because he just had a child, and he put this information up on his channel. So obviously he needs to put time towards raising the new addition to his family. But yeah, if you're doing a full time, the reality is it's not even. It's like that's just the editing. You still have to write out the script. You still have to. Or at least come up with the topic and ideas. Yes, can I do a video about the American Express Platinum card with very little bullet points? If I needed to, sure. But if I want to really start to have certain topics and dive into certain things, it's going to take me some time to write out the stuff and get it all prepared. So then there's that. And then there's the actual shooting. I don't know how much time everyone else shoots. It can all range. Sometimes everything flows really easy and I do great. And then other times I just stuttering a ton. I'm messing up on what I'm saying. I don't even know where I'm even. So that can end up being a process. So yeah, my shooting time can range very much, but it's never over. Like it's not like 3 hours. Whereas editing can be, if you're adding in graphics, if you're trying to grab in different things for cards, if you're, trying to put it, it takes time. Yeah. So yeah, I hear you, Cody. All right. I think for the most part, I got most people's things here. I'm happy to see everyone who came by. Thank you so much again, Tim, for adding in that super thanks, I think is what it's called, super sticker. So that is awesome. Thank you to welcome Frederick, I believe is who was saying was new to Points and Miles. Was it Frederick? Or am I mixing it up? I might have mixed it up. Sorry. No, son. Sorry. I guess I have a lot of different comments on here, so I don't know exactly who wrote what. But yeah, whoever, I forget who was newer to the game. I'll look at it after this thing is done. So, but thank you everyone who came by today. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to be doing a live next week because I should be hopefully getting stuff taken care, or not going to be around, just doing my trip. So because of that, just the hours are going to be all weird. So I'm not going to be able to get that taken care of. But I will have videos coming out because I do have videos that I have shot and I have edited. So check all that stuff out. But I really appreciate everyone stopping by. You can always email me for people who want to use my service. I still have that. Anyone who wants to become a channel member, I will be doing different giveaways. I am begin doing a giveaway in the month of May since it is my birthday month. So if you want a chance to win something from me, become a member of this channel. Also join the Cheap Travel Knowledge Facebook group where you can ask me questions. You can ask people questions in there. It hasn't been as active with people talking amongst one another, but I do try to post things when I go to places in there, and I hope that it helps people get inspired to want to go do trips. So, and then, yeah, if you want to do any assisted bookings or consultations, email me, cheaptravelknowledge@gmail.com. And then there's also, if you just go to the website, cheaptravelknowledge.com, you can fill out the form, and then I can contact you from there. But thank you all for being here with me this Friday night. Cesar, see you here. Appreciate you, brother. All righty, everyone. You be well. Take care.